You're listening to Straight from the Pulpit. Here you will find sermons taken directly from the pulpit of Shenandoah Baptist Church in Verona, Virginia. We preach Christ, study the Word of God, and help the Christian grow spiritually by applying God's Word to their lives. For more information or to read the pastor's blog, go to sbcverona.com. That is sbcverona.com.
People have been loving money since the beginning, and it is part of evolution. Did you know that? It really is. It gets really down into the crux of what we believe as Christians, and it's important to understand how money is going to play out in the latter days, which I believe we're already in. There's a lot of scary stuff today. You could even say depressing when you think about, when you figure out what's going on in the world, what's really happening. But guess what? I read the book, and we win. So don't get dismayed, don't be afraid, don't be upset. This should stir you. We start this week like we do every single week with a pop quiz. You know what's coming. What would you say if someone said to you, do you believe in evolution? What would you say? What? Which kind? If somebody said which kind, okay, great. Which one? Sure. What do you mean, John? Wow, okay, there's 6 kinds. Well, since you brought it up, thank you. What are one of the 6 kinds? Anybody? Stellar. And what's stellar? You have no idea. You've been here for 22 weeks. I have really failed you. Excellent. All those years of teaching music and teaching people how to fly have not done a thing for my abilities as an instructor. Well, stellar evolution is the belief that all stars and planets formed out of the Big Bang, and that the energy and the mass required to make stars miraculously appeared. The best estimation of astrophysicists on how stars are formed is through a loss of matter and energy from surrounding entities like other stars. And in order to create a star, the best theory they currently have that they can actually point to some sort of scientific evidence for their hypothesis is how many stars would have to be destroyed to create one star. 8. So 8 stars would have to explode in close proximity to release enough energy to create one star. Okay, stellar planetary evolution. Give me another one. Yes, ma'am. What was it? What does the brother say? Macroevolution. So that's the changing of one kind to another. Okay, I've seen 2 different kinds of dogs, a big and a small dog, make a medium-sized dog, but I've never seen them make a banana. Okay, there are no intermediary species between kinds. They'll tell you there are. We even learned about some for what they call Homo sapiens, right? And we thought that perhaps some of these might be real, and I proved and showed to you that Lucy, Piltdown Man, all these different missing links were actually false. They were created. In fact, one of them was created over a 1.5 mile radius. They took bones from between in like a 1.5 miles, and they said this was one animal. And they actually used pig parts too, and it's still in the textbooks. That's 2. Give me one more. Yes. Microevolution. What does that mean? It means when you marry a nice Christian woman who loves the Lord, right, more than she loves you someday, okay, and maybe you guys get married and you have kids, they'll look like both of you. There'll be a combination, you know. I always joke and I say if the Lord had allowed us to raise children, I hope that my children would have looked more like Tess than me, but they still would have had my traits. Pray for them. Okay, so we'll hear, and we'll give you the list here. Here's the cheat sheet. Here's all the different kinds. Cosmic, that's the origin of time, space, and matter. Time, space, and matter. Okay. Solid, liquid, gas, height, depth, width. You know, there's a lot of trinities in God's universe, but that's that everything came from something smaller than this. All matter, all energy, something this small, smaller than the head of a pin, exploded, and that created everything. I don't believe in that. Chemical evolution, that all of the elements in the periodic table evolved from hydrogen and maybe helium. Okay? And then organic, which is the origin of life, that we all come from rocks. Everybody parked out here on this parking lot, which has rocks in the material. And so that's your great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-great-grandpa. Did you know that? If you believe in evolution, that's what you believe. If you don't know that that's what evolutionists believe, then you're ignorant. Okay, because that is exactly what they believe. They believe that the earth was super hot, it cooled, gases condensed, liquid fell over the rocks for millions and millions of years, which created the prebiotic soup. Okay, and then that prebiotic soup somehow either on the backs of crystals or aliens, that's their best two explanations. Okay, that's literally it. Okay. Sounds like science fiction, not science. That's their best two guesses on how it happened. Either crystals or aliens, that somehow the chemicals inside created a one-cell organism, which then became a two-celled organism, and then that somehow exploded, and it created all of the different types of life on Earth, and they call that what? Anybody remember it? It's two words, really. It's a compound word, another word. Anybody know? Precambrian explosion. That's right. It just exploded up. I think it exploded. I think they all came about in a similar manner when God said, "Let there be." So that's what they believe, and now you know what we believe, and now we can go on with money. Evolution is the foundation behind a lot of different things. We were talking about communism, humanism, racism, and it's the foundation on the money powers. A lot of stuff here to think about. We talked about Karl Marx. We're going to go back just a bit because I think it's important. The central bank. The Karl Marx Communist Manifesto from 1848 came out of the Age of Reason, and we talked about how Karl Marx was a huge fan of Charles Darwin. We even saw the inscription that he gave to Charles Darwin from a sincere admirer, Karl Marx. And that theory of evolution gave him the idea for communism, and the Communist Manifesto, number 5, is the creation of the central bank. Anybody know what the central bank's name is in America? The Federal Reserve. Pastor, you're getting an A+ on this. You are the best student ever. Okay. No, seriously. The Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve is about as federal as Federal Express. It's not federal at all. Okay. It is a group of men, rich bankers, who lost a lot of money around the turn of the century, and they wanted to consolidate power, and they wanted to keep the banks printing money. They did. Probably get shot for this, for saying this kind of stuff. But it's the truth. Read the book, The Creature from Jekyll Island. You really don't need to read it. You can just go on social media and look up Jekyll Island. It probably won't come up with a beautiful island shore in Georgia, but it'll probably come up with the story of how these men got together and created the central bank. And they decide monetary policy, not you, not your government. It's them. Because the Bible tells us it's not a big surprise. It says, "Ooh, is it going to work today? Yeah, there you go. For the love of money is the root of all evil. Money equals power. Ye shall be as gods. 1 Timothy chapter 6, verse 10. You want to follow that yellow brick road, right? Follow the money. The Bible tells us in Ezekiel, if I can, this is not working today. Let me see, where is it at? Come on, I didn't move it. Let's see. Did I get enough signal? Yes. Thus saith the Lord God, because thine heart is lifted up, and thou hast said, I am a God. I sit in the seat of God. Behold, thou art wiser than Daniel. With thy wisdom and with thine understanding, thou hast gotten thee riches. Oh, it's always about the money, isn't it? It's always about that money. It's kind of a shame. You know, the rich, they ruleth over the poor. It's not a problem being rich as long as you're a godly person with it. Proverbs 22, verse 7, thus says, the rich ruleth over the poor, and the borrower is servant to the lender. That's why it's important, if you can, although it's difficult, not to be in debt. It's not that God doesn't want you to have things, but if you have to borrow money to pay for things, you're the servant of the bank, aren't you? I mean, there was a time in history, and we think it's crazy. We think that's rule. That's cruel. That's unkind. There was a time when people didn't buy things unless they had cash for it. Believe it or not, people didn't have credit cards. And you know, the average American has over $20,000 in credit card debt. That's crazy. $20,000 in credit card debt right now. The average family, I'm sorry, not a person, individual, but the average household has. That's a lot. And you're just serving. Anybody ever been debt free? If you have, it's a great feeling, right? But I'll admit that car's not paid for out there. I'm in debt. So I don't know. It's because we want things. And this next generation, they've got it really tough because they see the older generations, they have a home and they have a car and they have, they take a vacation and they think that they should get that right now. How many of you who are maybe a little bit older and wiser didn't have 2 cars in the garage and a beautiful home immediately as soon as you got married? You had to work for that, right? Tess was over at the house of one of y'all recently, and she said, that is a beautiful house. It's such a nice place. It has everything that I would ever want. And I said, yeah, they had to work for that. And she's like, yep, they did. It took them a long time to work for that. So it's not just an instantaneous thing. It's an instant gratification thing. And that's where we come into this. But we're talking about history, right? We're talking about the people that kind of ran this thing. John D. Rockefeller, oil tycoon, teetotaler, didn't drink. A lot of people think that he was, a good Christian man. He might have been on certain days, but there's a lot of things that he did that are pretty sketchy. Andrew Carnegie, we already talked about him, how he's the founder of the National Science, the National Science Center for Science Education. Big believer in that. He was a huge proponent of evolution. There's a book again. Many of the super rich people in this world just think that I'm not saying are all bad people. There's some very good, godly people who are rich. But I do believe it's pretty obvious there's a lot of people who are rich who believe that they got rich for a reason and they should be ruling the world and not you. And you should not have a vote because we are not as educated or as evolved. For centuries, alchemists, they sought to turn lead into gold. The bankers discovered a way to do it. You just start wars and you finance them on both sides. I've fought in one of those wars, spent a better part of 20 years overseas fighting those wars. And when the lead stops flying, the gold rolls in because the interest payments come. During World War II, the U.S. debt rose 598%. Japanese debt, 1,348%. French debt, 583%. Canadian, 417%. National debt is staggering. I don't even know what it is right now, but Nehemiah is talking about this way back in the day. We have borrowed money for the king's tribute, and that upon our lands and vineyards, and lo, we bring into bondage our sons and our daughters to be servants. We have given our families and our children and our descendants into bondage through this debt. Here's some of the history of the love of money in America. In 1776, we fought a war and gained independence from England and the Bank of England. I mean, we're over here, paying for people to invade our country, spread their false religions, poison the minds of our children, and we're paying staggering percentages of taxes to support that. And these guys started a war over a 10% tax on tea. I bet the people back in those days could take a travel in time and see what we're doing now. They would be like, why aren't you fighting? Well, again, there will be fights. There will be wars. I've read the book, We Win. So as Christians, this is just to give you an idea of how deep the rabbit goes, okay? The rabbit hole goes. All right? Congress only had the power to coin money. Jefferson warned, listen to this one. If the American people ever allow private banks to control the issue of currency, first by inflation, then by deflation, the banks and corporations will grow up around them, deprive the people of all property until their children wake up homeless on the continent their fathers conquered. Here we go. 1792, Alexander Hamilton established a 20-year charter with the Bank of England. In 1812, the renewal was denied, and guess what happened? War broke out. That's right. Andrew Jackson removed all the monies from the charter banks and put them into state banks. In 1836, the rich men had Mexico invade Texas. In 1861, to help create the Civil War, to disrupt the economy, to create debt to them, to get their power back. Was it about slavery? Sure, it was. Was that a very hot button issue? Absolutely. Is it right to hold people in bondage? No. Is it in the Bible? I understand it is, and you released them at the 7th year. But that war wasn't always just about slavery. Just like the war in Afghanistan wasn't just about finding bin Laden. Because once we found him, and I was there in 2010, I was there in Jalalabad. I worked with SEAL Team 6. I hung out with them. I ate dinner with them. Once that happened, why are we still there? I'll tell you why, because it's power. Oh, went a little too far ahead. 1861 to the turn of the century, the Industrial Revolution created a whole bunch of wealth in the hands of a few. I'm not a socialist. I think it's great. You invent something, you make something that people want to buy, you make something that makes life better. Good for you, you deserve the rewards. You absolutely do. But you don't consolidate power and try to subjugate people at the same time. There's two sides to every story. In 1907, J.P. Morgan created the financial panic of 1907 to create the idea of a central bank right there at the turn of the century. We talked about that earlier. 1912, Colonel House, who was in the Wilson administration, he wanted to establish a central bank and a progressive income tax to control people. In 1913, on December 23rd, we talked about this last week. Anybody remember? What's going on December 23rd, do you think, in 1913? Is everybody getting on my jet in DCA and I'm flying them up to their respective states for the holidays at the last minute? No, they were long since gone. They had long since left the Capitol. There was a skeleton crew of legislators still there, and the 16th Amendment was passed on December 23rd in the middle of the night. Colonel came in and said, the 16th Amendment has passed. To who? The Federal Reserve's not federal. Stantonian, Woodrow Wilson, born in this town that you live right in, right, or next to, said, I have unwittingly ruined my country. You don't see that in the history books anymore. And in the 20s, the bankers increased the money supply, so we had the Roaring 20s, and then guess what happened right after that? Boom, the Great Depression. Up, down, up, down, up, down, up, down. You got to control the monetary policy, right? It helped create the New Deal, programs that the government could loan out money. Look, I don't have any problem with charity. Charity, love, I have no problem with it. It stems from love. I don't think it should come from Washington. I think it should come from us. I think the church should be the one out there doing the right things and helping people. But, you know, we can't have God because God will tell you what to do. And then you can't have sin in your life. You have to do it God's way, and that wouldn't be any fun. So let's go ahead and control the power by controlling the money. And that's what we did. Let's give people stuff. Let's give them stuff. 1932, Congressman Lewis McFadden gave a speech spelling out who had caused the Great Depression. The third attempt on his life succeeded. Yep. He died for that. 1933, the government debt to the bankers began to grow. Millions accepted this new concept called a Social Security number. Absolutely, right? Think about this. If I paid out $600 in Social Security a month, by the time I turn age 65, I would have $1.9 million. And I would have an incredible income for the rest of my life. Instead, that same amount will net me just a little bit over $30,000 a year, just under 40,000 grand. That's not stealing? Where's the money going? Why does every single party, Republican and Democrat, say we need to fix Social Security? Well, how about you stop borrowing against it? The rich men trick people into getting that Social Security number so they can get benefits. They create a crisis to encourage compliance. You don't even have to have a Social Security number. Did you know that? You don't have to. I'm not saying you shouldn't or should. I'm just saying, little known fact, Block 3, selective service. How many men registered for selective service? Everybody raise your hand because you had to, right? Down there, Block 3, if you have a Social Security account number, it is mandatory that you include this information. If you don't have one, leave this block blank. Here's an application to Taco Bell. Tess, you worked at Taco Bell, didn't you? Taco Bell, Social Security number, optional. Not required to have one, but we do. A lot of things have changed. A lot of things that we think about it, not just Social Security numbers. The money you have. Anybody got some money in your pocket? Anybody got money in your wallet right now? Pull out. Everybody who's got money, stop right now. Reach into your bag if you have it with you and pull out a $1 bill or a $5 bill or anything. Go ahead. Everybody pull out a bill. Go ahead. Let's look at it. We're going to look at something cool. Wait till you see this one, huh? Now look on the back. Here's a $5 bill. I want you to see if you have what this says. This says, redeemable in gold on demand at the United States Treasury or in gold or lawful money at any Federal Reserve Bank. What does yours say? Can you read it? Can you read it? Should say somewhere in there redeemable in like real money. Does it say that anywhere on the back of it? That's what it used to say. Interesting. You don't see it in the dollar bill? Okay. Well, you used to see it on all the bills. It was redeemable in gold. You could go redeem it. And then we took us off what? The gold standard. It became illegal to own large amounts of gold. Now you can't have gold. Anybody remember when the gold standard, when Nixon came back and said, we're going to take people off the gold so you can actually have gold? They didn't want people to have gold. That was a thing to put it in the Federal Reserves. That's what all of our money was based off of. We have Federal Reserve banks, we have gold there, and that's the power of borrowing. That's what our country was allowed to borrow against. If the gold wasn't in the vaults, we got a real problem. Because all we're borrowing against is the paper and the ink. Does that make sense? Well, they did in the 20s and 30s, though. Yeah.
We're still waiting to see if there's any gold in the knots.
Good point, brother. 1933, Congress.
76,
I think it was in the 70s. I know I was a small human then. But Roosevelt declared to the Congress of the Governors that a national state of emergency existed, and basically he needed to fight the debts, right? And the governors voted unanimously to recommend to the U.S. Congress executive powers for the president to wage war on the economic enemy. Now, normally he would not have those powers, okay? That's something that they had to change to give him that power. Congress voted to give the President of the United States and to the Secretary of the Treasury emergency powers to wage war through executive orders. Okay, and there's the USC code, United States Code right there for it. Section B of the Trading with the Enemy Act of 1917 was then amended to include the citizens of the United States for their ability to own gold. We're not allowed to own gold. Now, you look on a bill, this note is legal tender for all debts, public and private, and is redeemable in lawful money. Not gold. The note's not money. That's not money. That's just paper. It's evidence of a debt, not money. The Coinage Act of 1792, which was never revoked, defines a dollar as 25.8 grams of 9/10 of fine gold and 412.5 grains of 9/10 of fine silver. It's still the standard. Rothschild said, "Permit me to issue and control a nation's money, and I care not who makes its laws." I don't care one bit. The surest way to destroy a nation, Lenin said. Oh, let me get to Lenin. Come here, Lenin. Where'd you go, Lenin? Get up here. Surest way to destroy a nation is to debauch its currency. He's right. These countries, in other countries, this isn't even an afterthought. Thank goodness we live in the greatest country on earth right now, okay, that we're able to even talk about this. You probably couldn't even talk about it. But evolution has made people believe that they are more evolved, they're better, so therefore they should make the rules. Whereas God says we're all made in his image. Man, they even put Charles Darwin on their money. Bank of England right there. We're the United States of America. We were originally founded as an idea of a bunch of basically micronation states that work together. Okay? And I'm all for the federal government to have the ability to defend us from the Ruskies or the Chinese. I raise my right hand. I didn't raise my allegiance to the government. I raised my allegiance to the Constitution, to this country. Okay? But things have kind of changed. There's a great series here on the Rockefeller family with their ties to communism that you can get. The Federal Reserve Conspiracy and the Rockefellers that you can check out if you want to. Nikita Khrushchev. Who remembers Nikita Khrushchev and the crisis at the Bay of Pigs in Cuba? There he is hanging out with his good buddy, Governor Rockefeller. Khrushchev, whether it's true or not, nobody knows. It could be subterfuge, and it probably is. But it's interesting that he chose to say he received secret codes and money and all secrets from the Rockefeller-dominated CIA, right? We have traded real money, guys, for gold and silver for worthless paper. And soon those who control the real money will require all transactions to be controlled electronically. For the name of convenience and safety. How many people have forgotten all the phone numbers you used to have to remember? Because now you got a cell phone, right? You got a cell phone, it's got all the numbers in there. I remember mine used to be 886-2860. You know, right here in Stanton. That was my number growing up. Now I don't have to remember your phone number. I've taken that portion of my brain and I've converted it to remembering passwords. How many times you have a password account? I got to change my password. Oh, my password got corrupted. Blah, 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 blah. Man, you know what? It's going to, sometimes I say to myself, it's going to be easy to sell any kind of scheme to control money by saying, we will give you a chip, right? A lot of people are like, no passwords, give me that chip. Now, I don't know what's going to happen really because I'm going to be gone anyway. It's not going to happen while I'm here. But it is interesting. That's probably how they're going to sell it. The Revelation verse 13, chapter 13, verse 16 says, and he causeth all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark in. If you have the right Bible, it says in. Well, there's actually a few versions that say that, not just the right Bible, but not on, in their right hand or their forehead. In. A mark in. What are they? I wonder if people 4,000 or 2,000 years ago said in, a mark in. Maybe they thought like a tattoo or something, because there were tattoos back then. Revelation goes on to say in. Whoa, let's see. Come on, this thing's messing up. There you go. That no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark or the name of the beast or the number of his name. Again, Christians, you ain't going to be here for this. It ain't going to. Don't worry about it. It's not you. But I'm just saying, for those left behind. If any man worship the beast and his image and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God, and he shall be tormented with fire and brimstone. It's compelling. Nothing to be scared of. Does it mean it's a chip? I don't know. I'm not going to be here. I'll find out when I get to heaven. But we've already seen a preview. I'm not talking about a chip necessarily. But I am talking about the propensity for vast portions of this population to roll over like sheep or goats and just take it. Look at this. Remember that during COVID? We're not going to accept cash. Hey, here's a good one. You want to get a liberal to agree to not doing this kind of stuff? Give them the argument. Hey, when illegal aliens come to our country, they don't have the ability to get a bank card because ICE might come get them. So we need to have cash. That gets them. I've got a few of them like, that's a good point. Gotcha. But money will not be accepted. Here's a great book that you can read about this, The Mark of the New World Order, Terry Cook. We've already seen this technology for a long time. In your wallet, you've got a chip card, right? It just reads it. How about, I got one right here. Best thing that Tess ever got me. She wanted to get me one of these forever, and I said, absolutely not. I'm not getting that crazy thing and being tracked. I thought that was dumb, and she was like, you should get one, and you're always losing your keys all the time, every single day. No, I don't want it. Anybody know what this is? It's an Apple AirTag. Do you know what it is?
Yeah,
Tell them.
it connects to your phone and I think you tell your phone to find it and it lights up.
It's crazy. I could be anywhere. I could be in the yard, and this thing will not only make a sound and go, but it'll also give me a screen, and I can just go like, you're getting closer, you're getting warmer, there it is. It'll tell me where to turn. Great technology. It's super convenient. You can see how this stuff is going to be embraced at some point. And like I said, you've been seeing this for 20 years. I mean, they had the Speed Pass at Exxon. That little chip right there got smaller and smaller. Now, like he said, it's in our phones. All this technology is in your phones right now. It's no big deal. You're using it all the time. You don't even know it. My social media management company, I've learned a lot from people. I work for a guy for one of the magazines I write for, and he worked for Facebook for 6 years full time. It's amazing some of the stuff that goes on that I have learned. It's crazy. Now they've got this. Check this out. You ever heard about the Neuralink? You heard about this? Anybody? Elon Musk implanting a chip into a person to allow them, say you have a person who has been unfortunately paralyzed and they can't move or anything like that, can't use their hands. You put the Neuralink in their head and it interfaces with your brain to allow you to give commands, mentally. So you could literally move a mouse with your mind with a Neuralink. And it's been implanted in several people now. Maybe it will be a chip though. People are like, well, how are you going to put a computer in there? We'll get it afterwards. How do you get a computer into a person's hand? You don't need a computer. Every time you go to the grocery store, you scan something, it's like a little barcode. The barcode is the code that tells you what the item is. All the information's in the register or the computer. You don't need it. You just need a barcode or something that's Eric. Boom, yep. Oh, Eric, he put some memes about the president on there we didn't like. Let's go ahead and shut off his bank account. Oh, It could happen. I'm just saying. It's interesting. All comes from one of the biggest companies that deals with this. We talked about this, I think, Mondex. Mondex, a compound of words, monetary and dexter. Okay, monetary meaning money, dexter, hand. MasterCard owns 51% of Mondex. Okay. Robin Kelly of Mondex International said, this is the final stage in becoming a global reality. With MasterCard's backing, there's nothing to stop Mondex now from becoming the global standard. So watch for these things, these smart cards. It all comes from the Secure Electronic Transaction. That's the acronym. It's interesting. Set, the god of evil, their version of Satan. Interesting. But you can see these in all kinds of cards, like, you get on a subway. If you've ever ridden a subway, they have these things, and they're very cheap. You can just throw them right out. Sometimes I forget to turn the cards in when I'm on my overnights to the hotel because I'm just rushing. And, I've got like a stack of them. And I tried to bring one back and they're like, these are so cheap, we can just throw them out. I'm like, really? Like, yeah, you can only scan them a few hundred times and then they're just trash anyway. So I was like, oh, okay. And so I give them to kids and they got their little wallets and they're like, look, I got a credit card. I'm like a big boy. But, it's really cheap technology. It's not a computer in the chip or something like that. It's just a code. It's just a code. You see them all over the world. Here's a close-up of some of the ones. People who control the world's wealth may think they have everything under control, but you know what? Let me give you one last verse, and this will encourage you. Revelation chapter 6, and the kings of the earth and the great men and the rich men and the great chief captains and the mighty men and every bondman and every free man hid themselves in the dens and the rocks of the mountains and said to the mountains and the rocks, fall on us and hide us from the face of him that sitteth on the throne and from the wrath of the Lamb. For the great day of his wrath is come, and who shall be able to stand? That's the last thing these guys are going to say, because it's coming. I told you, I read the book. Government ownership of communication and transportation. I see this every day when I go to work. You go to TSA, you ain't getting in that airport unless you're going through TSA. There ain't no way. Unless you're straight off the boat illegal immigrant who knows where your loyalties lie, and they get a pass and they go right through security without being scanned. Isn't that great? Did you know that? The folks who work in the airport who are, helping people out and taking them on their thing or working in the restaurant stuff. Of course, they've been vetted, totally vetted, so I'm sure they're safe. But they're not getting scanned. They're not going through the metal detector, they're going through the regular one. And I go through it too. So hopefully I'm not a bad guy. So there is a scan. That's not true. It's not completely true. There is a scan, but they don't go through the one you go through. Okay? It's interesting. FCC, we've seen that. We've seen how the government can literally influence social media platforms not to deplatform certain people for saying certain things. We've already seen that. Government ownership of factories and agriculture. That's the next step. We've seen that overseas in my line of work, with airlines that are owned by the government. So if they lose money, it's no big deal. They can still take the flying away from American companies and take you on your vacations to Europe cheaply because they can do it really cheap. They also don't have to have more than 250 hours of flying experience to get in that jet. Wow. Whereas my company, it's usually more like 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 to get in that jet. But it's a government ownership. At some point, they'll use a crisis and they'll say, oh, we have a collapse in food production. We need to take over and make sure that there's enough food. Could happen. It's kind of like a preview of what we're going to see when we're all raptured in heaven. Government control of labor. That's another one of Karl Marx's, tenets for, Communist Manifesto. Government control of labor at some point. Corporate farming, regional planning. Certainly we saw that in the old Soviet Union. And their farming and their food production collapsed. It was terrible. I mean, at some point, we had quite a bit of leverage over the Soviets just to be able to sell them just our winter wheat, just so they could have enough food. Okay? Coming soon to a town near you. And my personal favorite, that's sarcasm, free education. Free education for all kids in the public schools. Hitler said, and I quote, "Let me control the textbooks and I will control the state." Whew. On that, I think we'll leave it for next week, and then we'll get into a little bit more good stuff, and I'll come right to you for that. Let's pray. Heavenly Father, thank you so much that we can know the truth from the Bible. We can see the works of evil men, and that most importantly, very importantly, we know that it's all going to fail. We don't have to be afraid of what's going on in this world. We don't have to be anxious. We don't have to be nervous. We don't have to be angry. We can turn our hearts to peace and love and joy and happiness so that everyone's like, why are you so happy? We can turn our hearts to something more important, which is giving them the gospel and telling them why we have so much expectancy and so much joy.
You have been listening to Straight from the Pulpit podcast from the pulpit of Shenandoah Baptist Church in Verona, Virginia. Be sure to follow this podcast and share this sermon with a friend. And if you're listening on Spotify, please leave us a 5-star review. See you next time.